Welcome back, my friends. I'm sure you're probably a little bit surprised to see me on here. It's been a while since I've made a video, and as I'm sure you know, those of you who have stuck around with me and managed to stay subscribed to my channel, those of you who have emailed me and messaged me and through social media, YouTube, emails, Instagram, asking me what's going on with me, why haven't I made any more videos. You probably are aware that I've taken a pretty long break from social media, YouTube, all social media in general, and haven't posted any videos or updates in quite some time. So I figured I'd jump on here and talk to you guys a little bit, catch up with you, let you know what's been going on with me, with my family, share a little bit about what we've been up to and some of our current and future plans. So why don't we go for a ride and let's talk about it. So guys, it's been quite some time since my wife and I and our young daughter made our last trip to the motherland back in Moscow, and I gotta say that a lot has happened, a lot has transpired since that time. I remember being on that airplane headed back to America after our second trip to Moscow, which was, I believe, in the winter of 2022. And it's been quite an eventful time. As you guys both know, a lot has transpired in both of these countries. Matter of fact, the week that we had gotten back from Russia back to the United States, as I'm sure most of you are aware, the very next week, the whole war conflict broke out between Russia and Ukraine. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys about it since you guys live there, and I'm sure you're all very well aware of the situation and what's been going on. But I want to take it back a little bit and talk about some of the reasons why we, like the title suggests, we have decided that we are no longer going to be moving to Russia. We changed our minds about the whole situation, and we no longer feel that it's in our best interests, at least for the time being, or for the foreseeable future, or indefinitely, to use Russia as a place that we want to go ahead and move, live, and continue raising our daughter and progressing in our family. So I think, I don't want to get into too much detail about explaining all of the reasons as to why we made these decisions, because a lot of them are quite personal, and I feel that, I just don't want to put out all of my business out there like that, nor do I feel that I owe anybody an explanation. I will say that after our second trip, my wife and I were dead set on moving. I mean, we were this close. We got back to the States. We started making all these grand plans, selling all of our stuff, all the possessions. We had multiple garage sales and selling everything we could, just about, minus our furniture and all these like big ticket items that we were planning on putting into storage. And as time went on, we realized that there was a lot more that we hadn't really accounted for or planned for. On top of which, the relationships that I had built that have really been severed and had fallen apart and declined quite drastically very quickly after we got back to the States. As I mentioned in some of my previous videos, for those of you who have seen them, I met my father only a couple of years ago. My father has been absent from my life up until I was about 36 years old. I'm currently 39 now. I had no idea who he was, what he was about. My mom was a single mother who was very abusive to me and my brother growing up, both physically, emotionally, mentally, every which way you could think of. So a lot of you have watched some of my previous videos, and maybe you have not seen my initial videos where I explained somewhat some things about my childhood and some of the things that both my brother, myself, and I had to endure at the hands of my very abusive mother, which is why we no longer have contact with her, or speaking for myself, I no longer have any relationship with her. I wish her the best in life, but some things have affected me so deeply, so profoundly, and that I have such psychological wounds from some of the traumas that I incurred during my developmental years, well into my adulthood, that she's never owned up or taken any accountability for. And some of the things that she had perpetrated on myself and my brother has affected me so profoundly psychologically that it's something that personally I have made peace with, made amends with, but I'm not inclined or entitled to forgive anyone, and I just decided that it was the best thing for me, my own mental health and my well-being for that of myself and my family and my growing and developing daughter, to just let things go and move on. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but just about the same thing happened with my father over the span of the last 2 years. Upon meeting him, several times and speaking to him, I realized that he was a selfish prick, a narcissistic person who really had no interest, no desire to get to know myself, my wife, my daughter, our family as a whole on any kind of a level, and mostly just cared about, his own feelings, his own insecurities, his own politics. And no matter how much I tried for a span of two plus years to build a relationship with him and maintain come to some sort of a peace, resolution, understanding, I really don't even have the word for it, but it just became too much. Every conversation became filled with, outbursts both on his side and my side, hate, resent, just all kinds of things, negative things that I know that started impacting my life quite negatively. And I started noticing myself becoming more negative in terms of my own family, my own perspective outlooks, and it just started to cause a rift between both myself, my wife. I started noticing how it was affecting my own relationship with my daughter, and ultimately after a span of 2 years, and all these outbursts and him putting me down and just telling me the most just messed up, evil type of things that a father could possibly. I can't even imagine a father telling his own son some of these things, especially after being absent, for the majority of my life. I've come to realize that, I've always been on my own. I've always been on my own in terms of raising myself, taking care of myself, the life that I had built along with my wife, the things that I have achieved, the things that I have accomplished throughout life, things that I'm proud of, things that, even the mistakes that I've made, all of them are really a reflection of my own choices and decisions. And I have tried to the best of my ability to give the person, my father, how would you say it, the benefit of the doubt, to fly overseas multiple times with my family, with my current family, to introduce them to him and him to them, and in hopes of something more profound, a relationship, a deeper understanding of one another, especially after this absence that spanned many years, the majority of my life, not knowing, that other part of myself, where I came from and who I came from, and, the things that made me me, genetically speaking. And so, to be honest with you guys, I haven't spoken to my father now in the past year, over the course of the past year. And the last conversation that we've had together, it went so bad that ultimately, he said such nasty things to me in terms of myself, things about my wife, our daughter, that really, a light bulb went off in my head and snapped. And I realized that, this relationship never existed, and it was no longer worth saving or fighting for. And some of you guys may say, that's your dad, that's your mom, you only get one father, you get one mother. But for those of you who have never been through the vicious cycles of emotional, mental, physical abuse under the hands of your own parents, I will only say one thing, that it's up to the individual to decide how to proceed and whether or not they want to move on from the past, forgive and forget. And unfortunately for me, as a person that's been through a lot in this life, as a person that had to grow up in a very difficult environment, single mother, complete poverty. I had to raise myself in the streets of New York. You know, my first job was going to the U.S. military and having to fight for everything afterwards, you know, dealing with cycles of poverty, having been homeless myself for a period of over 2 years after I got back from the military, you know, and having nowhere to turn, no support of any kind. You know, as a man, I really can't complain, because that's what men do, right? We're supposed to go through trials and tribulations. We're supposed to go through hard shit to build character, to develop ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally. And you know, I don't give enough credit to myself for having survived the things that I've survived, and the things that I had to overcome throughout my 39 years on this earth. And you know, after 2 years of trying to maintain a relationship with this man, along with other family members that, you know, distant family members and relatives that, excuse me, I have met during my 2 visits to Moscow, you know, I've come to realize that everything that I've experienced there, everything that transpired, you know, I went there with a set of rose-tinted glasses. Not to mention that our country, where I live in the United States of America, over the course of the last 4 years with this current administration that we've just had, has put us through so much, put this country through so much, billions of dollars given away, you know, billions of dollars given away to foreign nations to enable all these wars and conflicts that have been going on. And you know what, guys? Frankly, I am so fucking relieved that our current president, Donald Trump, is coming into office January 20th. And, you know, he's got his work cut out for him to undo all of the damage that this previous and current administration has inflicted upon our nation, and caused such a rift and such a divide between ourselves and Russia and all these other countries that we used to have somewhat stable relationships with, you know. And I'm sure that also has some form of an impact on both my mind and my way of thinking, and the decisions I had to make in terms of relationships to my homeland, to Russia, the place where I was born, the place that I was taken from at a young age, and really had no connection to up until the last several years, up until, you know, my father had reached out and we started maintaining contact. And so I gotta say that over the course of the last 2 years, you know, my mental health had suffered a great deal. And in fact, when we were flying back after our last visit back to the United States, we were so dead set on moving to Russia because we had fallen in love, not just with the country and the way of life over there, but with the people, the culture, and this, in a way, I've come to realize that we were escaping, you know, this emptiness, this monotonous lifestyle that we had built up. Because frankly, guys, you know, my wife and I have built up such a life, you know, the things that we have here that we've taken for granted, the things that people around the world would probably kill to have for the position that we're in now. And you know what? Both of us have had it rough, you know. Neither her, my wife, speaking of my wife, or myself have won the lottery in terms of the families that we both have on both sides. You know, I might have talked about it briefly in some of my previous videos, but my wife, you know, after we got married and after we left New York, while my wife was pregnant and moved out to Florida, her mom, you know, her mom and dad had moved out here to be closer to us, and everything just fell apart and went to shit. Her mom ended up committing suicide, you know, within the first year of us moving here, getting married, purchasing our first home, having a baby. Her dad decided to leave her life, move on with his own. The relationship became a complete mess. You know, we tried to help each other. I moved them into our house, you know, tried to help my father-in-law every which way that I could, and for all of it to culminate in him leaving and, you know, going on with his life, which we've come to terms with. And then at the same time, while all that was going on, my dad popped out of the woodwork. And that was my very first time discovering Russia, flying out there by myself, not knowing what was going to happen, meeting him for the first time standing with him face to face, talking to him and learning about his ways and how he was, his personality, which I found so many similarities to mine, you know, both physically, emotionally, genetically. But at the end of the day, I've come to realize after some time has passed, you know, that we're completely different people with completely different backgrounds, raised in completely different countries, in completely different ways. And even though I think, to his credit, that we both tried to make things work and work on our relationship as father and son and father, ultimately we were just too different, too stubborn, too hard-headed, had been through too much shit for it to work out. And it caused me a lot of mental turmoil and anguish and a lot of pain. And, you know, over the course of the last 2 years, I found that I've lost myself. I've lost the person that I've become, but I've become less naive. I've become more realistic about life, my own meaning in this world, and the direction of which I am headed. And ultimately, guys, I came to the conclusion of my own, you know, my own life that I have a control over, and the things that I want to allow in my life, and the things which I will not, and which I will not tolerate. And unfortunately, sometimes it's your own family members that could be the most toxic and detrimental to your own physical, mental health and well-being. And so ultimately, I had to cut that out. And unfortunately, it wasn't so cut and dry. You know, I remember flying back from Russia, and this bubble that I was in at the time, after our last trip with my wife and our daughter, and, you know, shortly after the war with Ukraine started, and, you know, I started to have doubts about moving there, because all these things that were so simple for us to do prior to this whole situation, you know, now became these nuances that we had to solve and figure out. And, you know, it became difficult because there was just now an overwhelming amount of shit, an overwhelming amount of things that we had to navigate and conquer. And ultimately, it took a long time, several years actually, to come to the realization that, you know, our lives have been so chaotic and complicated over the past 8 years, pretty much since our daughter was born. The challenges that both my wife and I had to face and endure and overcome, that moving to Russia, really, as great as it sounded, as great as it had seemed at the time, would really have done nothing for us, and it probably would have not brought about any positive benefit positive benefit or change to our lives, you know. And in fact, it was only going to complicate things further and make things more challenging and difficult, especially for the fact that, you know, I feel now that we've passed our limit and the deadline at which we could do this type of a move. And had it happened sooner, you know, had I found a relationship with my dad, or rediscovered Russia earlier and on in my life, before all these world events and conflicts, I think it would have been possible, or at least more likely, that we would have been able to go try it out and see for ourselves. But with everything that's been going on in my own life, with the family that I've met and lost back home, back in Russia, and I can't even call it home anymore, because it's not, guys. It's not my home. You know, even though I was born there, and even though I was able to attain my citizenship in Russia, you know, it's a country that's completely foreign to me. And I say this because during the 2 visits that I had there, which were quite lengthy, I spent a good amount of time trying to learn the culture, understand. You know, I wasn't raised with that. Like I said, I was raised by a single parent mother who was an immigrant herself, who had a lot of problems with her mental illness, in and out of psych hospitals for the duration of my childhood. And ultimately, I had to raise myself. So I was never raised with the Russian culture. I was never accustomed to it. So that when I found myself there, and especially when I brought my wife and our young daughter, these were certain things that are given to me every day here, like knowing how to understand people here, knowing how to read people's facial expressions, what people are generally thinking, I found to be a challenge over there. And even though I speak the language pretty much just about 98% fluently, I understand it at 100% level, I found it was very difficult for me to relate to people there, because ultimately I discovered that the way I was feeling is that You know, living here, growing up in America my whole life, I always felt that I was different. I always felt that something is off. And after discovering Russia and finally going there with myself and along with my family, I realized that, you know, I'm neither theirs and I'm neither ours. Like, I am an American citizen, and I'm gonna try my best to explain that. But what I mean by that is, you know, it's not mine. Like, even though at the time I was there, the air felt different. Everything, it just felt like it belonged to me. The soil, the trees, the sky. It felt like it was home. But when you're in a bubble, guys, when you're in that bubble, you could only understand the things that are happening around you, and you don't think on the outside of it. And so it took a long time. It took a period of 2 years for me to understand, upon returning back to the United States after our last trip, that, you know what, despite all the time that I've spent, and I've spent several years now, you know, learning about my culture, learning about the motherland, learning about where I'm from, you know, interacting with my relatives, my dad, and all the things that I've learned about myself in the process and discovered, I finally began to understand, you know, that it's not mine. It's even though it felt like it was, I understood that at the age of 39, you know, when I was younger, I took a lot of risks. I was very impulsive. You know, I joined the military. I had an interesting career in photography, climbing buildings and skyscrapers, making the kind of art that really, at the time when I was doing it, nobody was really doing, nobody has done before. I wanted to show the world the place that I lived in a different light, in a different perspective, in a way that people who have lived there have never seen it. And you know what, guys, I gotta say, the things that I saw while I was in Russia, I was dumbfounded and astounded by the beauty, by the things that I experienced. But at the same time, 2 years onwards, I realized that this stuff, all the things that I've seen there, all the joy, all the things that I've experienced, you know, they will never be the same. You know, the fact of the matter is that both of our countries have changed, both the United States and Russia, and especially over the course of the last 4 years. You know, with the war, with the conflicts that we have going on domestically here in the United States, the conflicts that I have going on within my own family, you know, the health issues, the things that my wife and I had to deal with and continue to deal with on a daily basis, you know, raising our 7-year-old ourselves without the help of any friends or family, and just doing what we have to do each day, so that we could survive and be healthy, or as healthy to the degree that we can be, and still try to maintain and preserve our sanity. We realize that, you know, at the end of the day, it's better to stay here and fight and deal with what we have on our plate rather than escape and go somewhere else, at the same time taking ourselves and our problems with us. So, you know, I know it's kind of a lot that I'm saying right now. I haven't made a video in a while, and perhaps I'm a little bit rusty at this. I have so many thoughts going through my mind a million miles an hour that it's kind of hard for me to articulate and put into words, because there's a lot I want to say, but at this point, you know, I don't really know how. And I'm doing my best to try to not justify, because I don't feel I owe anybody a justification. While I understand that a lot of you guys have subscribed to my channel because you wanted to follow my journey and you know, see what kind of outcome we're going to, the kind of route that we're going to take, and whether or not we're really going to move. A lot of people, you know, are very negative in this world, and while we had a lot of positive support during this whole thing, and while we were planning this whole thing, a lot of people were rooting for us. And in fact, I've done several different interviews on different YouTube channels, explaining some of my story, and some of the reasons as to why we were planning on making this move. At the end of the day, guys, we realized that, you know, it's in our own best interests, having gone through some of the things that we have gone through in our life, to stay where we are, stay put, and you know, see how these conflicts develop over the coming years. Now, as you guys know, that we just had an election recently. Donald Trump is going to be our president once again, which frankly, I'm so excited. I'm so relieved about. As you guys could tell by my shirt, I'm a big supporter of our president. You know, I voted, my wife voted. We both support his policies. We both believe in putting America and Americans first, which is something that's happening, I think, worldwide in all countries that have any type of pride, patriotism, and common sense, really. Now, there's a lot of people here in the U.S. domestically that are upset about the whole situation, and to them I say, too bad, because whatever their administration, whatever their leaders were doing in the Democratic Party was obviously failing, was obviously not working, letting the American people down. And personally, I'm a big believer in taking care of our own people, our own country, our own veterans, the people who have lived here, served this country, paid into this country, paid taxes, who essentially grew up here, who struggled, who paid into the infrastructure and everything that we have done here need to be taken care of. You know, we need to take care of our own citizens before we worry about everyone else. I mean, think about it, guys. What other country in the world just allows people to come on in, opens up their borders, and then on top of that, starts to give them money and all these handouts and all these things that benefit these people while our own people here are struggling? So, you know, my wife and I, over the course of this last 2 years, have decided that we're going to stay put for the time being. Let's see how this next year goes, this next few years with Trump back in office, back in the White House. And, you know, we're really excited about the positive changes that are going to happen, even though I know a lot of people on the left are not thrilled about it, or some of them are completely shocked. But you know what? When your administration does shit that really doesn't benefit the American people and starts looking out for other countries and other people, citizens of other countries before our own, you know, Americans aren't going to go for that. We're truly a resilient people, and I can say that because I am an American, and that's the one thing that I ultimately realized. You know, I fought for this country, I served this country, and you know, 2 years ago when I was making all these plans and hatching all these ideas with my wife, you know, we felt like there's no more hope for America because of the things that the previous administration was doing to us, to our country, to our citizens. We felt like it's all coming to an end, and especially as parents having to raise a young child and navigate this whole crazy nonsense that's being perpetrated on the public, the gaslighting, the lying, all the things that this administration has been previously doing to our own people. We were trying to escape, and the thing that we realized ultimately is that, you know, you can't escape. No matter where you go, you bring yourself with you, and that's as for those of you who are watching, those of you who are living in Russia right now, you guys are very well aware of this saying. I'm sure it's a very popular expression in Russia. Независимо куда ты идешь, ты всегда берешь себя с собой. And I don't remember if I said it right. I'm not really even sure. If you want, guys, correct me in the comments. Share your thoughts, opinions, and feelings about this whole thing. I very much welcome any discussion in the comments, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. But ultimately, we changed our minds, and we're going to be staying put. We haven't been back to Russia since our trip 2 years ago. I'm not sure when we're going to be going back. In fact, my wife's visa has expired, and she decided not to renew it, even though I think in some time eventually we will. You know, we love the country that we visited. We love Russia. We love the things that we've seen there and the things that we've experienced. But we also understand it's not a paradise. It's not the perfect place. There's no such thing as a perfect country. You know, both of our countries have tremendous issues, tremendous problems, especially during the current time. And we felt that, you know, with everything going on, with all these things, these wars, these conflicts, internal issues, and things that are happening, right now would just not be the best time, especially as a veteran myself, you know, with all that tension between Russia and the U.S. And, you know, I'm sure there are plenty of people who've moved there from America and different countries throughout the world who've moved and made it work. And you know what, guys? Maybe you're right. Maybe we just didn't want it bad enough, even though we really were set on going and we really were set on making the move. We realized that ultimately, you know, we didn't want to have to put our daughter through all of this and upend her life, just as my life has been appended in the same way when I was her age. You know, my mother snuck me out of the country when I was around 6 years old. You know, detached me, separated myself and my brother from the rest of our family over there. and, you know, never talked about them, never mentioned anything to them, to us about them. In fact, whenever we asked any questions about our father or our extended family back in Russia growing up as kids, you know, she would just hit us and abuse us and be violent with us, you know. And so, of course, when you're a child growing up with this type of shit, with this type of a parent, you know, you don't really understand what's going on, so you just stop asking. And, you know, it wasn't until I became older that I began to start having all these thoughts and interest in my homeland, and especially when my father popped up out of nowhere, and I discovered for the first time that I was even alive, that he was even alive, that I had family there, you know. And all this time I felt like we were just here on our own. We had no idea that there was anybody out there, that I had extended family, and I was so excited to meet them. But you know what, guys, after these last 2 trips, we understand that everything there has changed. My family there has changed. We have changed. You know, we understand that everybody's just trying to do their own thing. Everybody's just trying to look out for themselves and take care of their families, and we completely understand, and we don't disagree with that. And so we didn't want to continue injecting ourselves into anybody's life. And you know, unfortunately, the relationships that I built over there were very brief. They did not last, you know, along with my relatives, which are you know, so amazing. They were such beautiful people. But guys, everybody is taking their own political and personal stances on the conflicts that have arisen over the span of the last few years. And ultimately, we decided not to subject ourselves to, you know, such a difficult, strenuous move geographically, along with all the issues that it would have presented for us. And so I'm sure, while I understand that we might have been successful in building ourselves a very comfortable lifestyle in Russia, and possibly even over the span of some time integrating quite well into the way of things there, ultimately we decided that we're going to put this off indefinitely for the time being. It's not something that we're going to be doing in the foreseeable future. Rather, that we're going to continue working on the things that we have going on here, continuing to work on our own physical well-being, mental health, and improving on our lives, and just continuing to raise our daughter. You know, things may not be perfect here where we live, but I'm sure that things are far from perfect in other places as well. And so we're taking the approach of being grateful for the lives that we do have, being grateful and thankful for the lives that we have built and what we do have, as opposed to what we don't. We're going to continue raising our child. You know, we love where we live. In reality, we live in a very safe environment here in the great state of Florida. Trump, like I said, has become president once again, and so I'm really excited to see the positive changes that are going to start coming within our country. I'm very excited to see our new administration now putting our country first. And while this may piss a lot of people off, you know, frankly, I don't give a shit, because as somebody that has grown up here in the United States, as somebody has given my blood, sweat, and tears serving this country, just like any of you who might be watching from Russia, who might currently have, you know, family, brothers, fathers, husbands, friends, sisters involved in the current chaos, in the current conflict, that are currently fighting for what you believe is right for you guys. You know, it's the same way I feel about here. I served this country, I fought for this country, whether you guys, some of you think it was on a predicated or a false notion. You know what, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, whether we were lied to or not about the reasons why we were there in these conflicts ourselves when I was younger, such as Iraq, Afghanistan, and all the stuff that we were all involved in, you know, at the end of the day, I didn't do it for any of the things other than my sense of duty and my sense of patriotism to the land where I grew up with. Just like any of you living in the motherland right now, you go, you serve, whether it's by mandate or by your desire to give back to the country, to your motherland. You know, it's no different. It's no different for any other soldier. You know, we're all the same, guys. At the end of the day, we all, those of us who have been through it, who have served in all these conflicts, or at any point or period in time, did it out of a sense of duty and patriotism and a sense of giving back, which is why I did it. And so I feel that having gone through these things, having done these things, I feel it's my duty to stay here and continue to work on my life, to continue to improve my own my own family's life, our own well-being, and continue building up on what we have instead of running away and trying to build something new and something different with, you know, I'm past the age of where I could afford to just gamble and, you know, roll the dice on things on uncertainties. You know, when I was younger, I was a lot more impulsive, and perhaps it may have been more likely for us to be, you know, successful and follow through with it. But like I said, guys, we had every intention to go through with this, and it took us a span of 2 years to really weigh everything and slow down and just assess and pay attention to what was going on, not just from our side, but both from the Russian side, from the Ukrainian side. You know, social media is publicly and readily available for everyone. Reddit, Telegram. It doesn't take a genius to open those apps and applications up and see what's really going on within all these countries. So at the end of the day, guys, I wanted to touch base with you, follow up, and let you guys know that, you know, we have changed our minds. We have changed our minds for ourselves, our family, and we're going to be staying here. I should probably follow up with another video and explain a little bit more. I feel like we're coming up on time on this one, but I kind of just wanted to jump on here, touch base with you guys since I haven't made a video in a long while. Many of you have messaged me and asked me what's been going on, what we've been up to, where I've been. So I'm well, I'm alive, I'm okay. You know, I'm still here, guys, and for the time being, we're not going anywhere, we're staying. I might make a follow-up video to this one explaining more of my thoughts. I know I just kind of rambled off a lot here, but to those of you who were curious, who wanted to know, that's what's been going on. So, you know, I'll make some more videos at some time in the future. Maybe I'll make this a regular thing that you and I just sit down and talk about different current events going on in America. Maybe you guys can share in the comments about how you feel about what I just said, whether you agree, disagree, it's okay. Hash it out in the comments. I'll read it. I'll respond to all you guys. To those of you who are betting on us not going, congratulations, we're not going, and it's not because we're afraid, it's because we feel that we made a sensible decision for our family to be responsible and stay put and work on our lives and continue to improve our own situation versus running away, especially during a time where the world is in such chaos and turmoil. So with that being said, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for those of you who have watched this video from beginning to end. Please check out my Instagram page, as well as if you're a new subscriber, I appreciate your subscription. Feel free to leave a comment down below, share your thoughts, you know, opinions on what I have just said. I welcome it all. We have free speech here on our channel. Donald Trump is now president. No more suppression, no more suppressing social media or silencing us or our voices. I'm very curious and excited to see what the next 4 years will have in store and what our current president will bring. I hope that this whole situation between Russia and Ukraine can be settled. I know that we need to stop giving funding to Ukraine because at the end of the day, I never voted. We live in a democracy, and I never signed up and I don't remember being asked to vote to give our hard-earned tax dollars, billions of them, away to foreign nations, foreign contracts, and to continue to promote and instigate these things. You know, while people are on the front lines, wherever you may be, wherever people are suffering and dying right now in these battlefields, in these trenches, you know, this shit needs to stop. We need to stop funding these wars, stop funding these pointless, useless campaigns. You know, unfortunately, America likes to get involved in all these foreign conflicts and stick its nose in and try to be the police of the world, and this has to stop. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels this way. I'm sure that a lot of what I just said is going to rattle a few feathers, and a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me. But you know what, guys, if that's the case, hey, you know what? So be it. That's how you feel about it. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and there's mine. With that being said, guys, I hope this kind of catches you guys up to speed, letting you know that, you know, we're okay, we're alive, we're still rolling, and we have other grand plans in store, which I'll probably share with you guys sometime in the future. So that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.